Hey, yo, Pro Wrestling Podcast listeners, welcome to the show where we don't sing it, we bring it. Help us out and click subscribe to show your support. Welcome back to the show. It's been a hot minute since we've been together. And people, are you sick and tired of dropping $60 to $100 for the latest and greatest wrestling video game? Stop immediately. Go to Wrestler Unstoppable, available exclusively through Facebook. Create a wrestler, sign contracts, get involved in storylines, headline pay-per-views, even build your own corporation, all included in Wrestler Unstoppable, available now to all Facebook users, totally free. If you want to become a member of the Pro Wrestling Podcast family, you want to get a name and a shout out like Mike and Lansdale, then go to our Patreon page, patreon.com/Pro Wrestling Podcast. Sign up today, and we have loyalty rewards. If you're a $15 a month contributor, you can host a live show with me. $7.50 a month contributors also entered into a drawing to host a show with me as well. Hello, everybody. It is the first episode back after a very long hiatus. Lots of things going on in my personal life, but I'm back to talk with you guys about the world of professional wrestling. If you have questions, comments, anything you want me to touch on in the future episode, feel free to jot them down and call into the Pro Wrestling Sound Off line 267-642-1160, and we will get to those in a future episode. And don't forget to check out the homepage of the Pro Wrestling Podcast at prowrestling.com. So, jumping into the news for the day, former WWE Tough Enough winner Sarah Lee, tragic news today, passing away at the age of 30. Now the formerly married to Wesley Blake, a former WWE superstar on the NXT brand. Sad news. This young lady, she won season 6 of the Tough Enough show. Really had an opportunity, but then in 2016, had her contract released. She was released by WWE. And never made it back to the wrestling business. She did start training at the Team Vision Dojo, which is a outfit down in Florida in 2017, but never actually returned to the ring. And the part that's so sad about all this, I mean, it's always sad whenever we lose anybody, but at her young age, and literally yesterday, or Tuesday actually, putting out a post about being so happy to get back to the gym back-to-back days after having a horrible sinus infection. In her last Instagram post, looked absolutely healthy, looked wonderful, and now 2 days later, it's just a sad, tragic situation. It just broke on Facebook, her mother putting a post out. So our well wishes and prayers go out to her family, her husband, and their 3 children. In addition, this week, it's just one of those weeks. Antonio Inoki, the legendary Japanese wrestler, passing away. New Japan Pro Wrestling would not be New Japan Pro Wrestling without Antonio Inoki. There's not a lot of people in the world of wrestling who can claim to be as important to any business and then in their general country as Inoki was. Not only was he a legendary performer, but he leaves professional wrestling after being a champion pretty much everywhere that he ever performed. He was like a prize student of Ricky Dozan way back in the day. I think he debuted in 1960 or something like that. Same graduating class with Giant Baba, who the two of them always had like this rivalry going on. Baba had the one promotion, Inoki started New Japan, and they always had like this rivalry going on. I think Baba had better success here in the United States, but Inoki in Japan, not only did he have success in the ring, eventually parlayed that fame and opportunity into a political career where he did many things, including bringing that famous Super Show to Korea through WCW back in the day. It's been a tough week. Inoki's contributions to the world of wrestling cannot be overstated, and when you think about it, it goes beyond professional wrestling. He's the guy who got in the ring with Muhammad Ali, which is one of the most bizarre matches you could ever see, where, you know, Inoki spends most of the match on his back trying to take Ali down with his legs while Ali's getting frustrated. He can't get Inoki up off the mat to be able to knock him down to get a knockout. So just a sad week to start off the episode, but definitely want to send our prayers out to the family and friends of Antonio Inoki as well. Lots of things going on in the world of pro wrestling since the last time we did an episode. We're going to get into some of them now. CM Punk and the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega and all the drama that went down back at All Out. Interestingly enough, CM Punk in the news today because the former owner of Ring of Honor spoke about how CM Punk had actually reached out to him with an interest in purchasing Ring of Honor prior to his arrival in AEW, which I found very interesting. He did make it clear that it wasn't one of these things that made it very far, but that he had definitely reached out and had interest. And you kind of wonder how things might be different in the wrestling landscape today if somebody with Punk's creativity, his brashness, and all these things, and no matter how you feel about Punk coming out of the AEW all-out scrum nonsense and debacle that went on, one thing that can't be forgotten is the guy can be really creative, and he, even though his methods are not always what you would like them to be, I think his motives are always to better the world of professional wrestling. I find it odd that when he came to AEW, he wanted to be the guy who worked with all these young guys, and then at the scrum, he was complaining about working with these guys. I didn't like a lot of the things he said at that thing, but that doesn't take away from his contributions elsewhere in the business and how interesting it may have been had he had the opportunity to be a part of Ring of Honor and maybe take it in a different direction than what it ended up doing. On that same vine, Tony Khan was being interviewed and having a whole conversation on the Double or Nothing. After Double or Nothing, there was a whole conversation about where they're at right now, and there was questions posed about the Young Bucks, Omega, Tony Khan saying he couldn't speak about those things. Conversations about Kenny or about CM Punk. Tony Khan again saying he can't talk about those things. Tony Khan clearly is dodging the topic of conversation. I don't know if that's something that's being handed down by the network, if that's a legal thing, because maybe there's threats of legal action if he does speak about it from Punk. Let's be honest, one of the punchlines in the post all-out scrum was about Colt Cabana, and we know that led to a legal situation between Cabana and CM Punk. Punk tends to say whatever he wants to say, and then it seems like he almost wants to cry foul when somebody calls him on the carpet on it. But we'll see. I don't know. That's just my interpretation of what it is. Maybe I'm wrong. You guys can decide for yourself. I did think it was interesting that certain media outlets today, including Wrestling Inc., which I think is one of the best out there, posted a headline that said, "Top WWE star to Kenny Omega, see you soon," which, of course, the wrestling fans right away, they're like, wait, what? And what they were talking about is Kenny Omega and Xavier Woods having this interesting back and forth, almost rivalry feud type thing going on for years now around the Street Fighter franchise. And with Street Fighter 6 coming out very soon, it sounds like the two of them are hoping to hook up at New York Comic Con, which begins today, and get an opportunity to face off against each other. It wouldn't be the first time. There was a time in the past where Kenny Omega and the Elite faced off against Xavier Woods in the New Day in a Street Fighter competition. The Elite actually won the competition, and I'm sure that the two groups would love to get together and do that again. Maybe we'll see that at the Comic-Con, but it certainly wasn't what wrestling fans were hoping when they read that. It's funny how sometimes the headlines do that just to tug on your heartstrings and try to see what they can get you to bite on. Another AEW related though, Tony Khan spoke about Paul White and how he hasn't been traveling with AEW. Some people may have noticed he wasn't at the tapings on Monday night. Apparently, Big Show is hurt. I shouldn't call him Big Show. I should call him Paul White, but we all know who I'm talking about. There's been hope that he would portray the Captain Insano character that he had used in 1998. It was an Adam Sandler film, The Waterboy. I'm sure most of you have seen it. If you haven't, go check it out. Interested in bringing that character into AEW, which I think would be great. It'd make for a humorous moment and something different for White to do. But apparently he's injured to the point that he doesn't even travel with the group right now. So it'll be nice to see when he gets back what they do with that character, because I think there's a lot that they could do that, and it adds a level of humor and conversation. Sticking with Tony Khan comments, because it's been a busy week with Tony Khan. There was some controversy back in 2021 in terms of when WWE was contacting New Japan Pro Wrestling about a working relationship. And Tony Khan had made a statement back then in reference to something in terms of like there's only room for one Khan. And that's him, not Nick Khan, the gentleman who works at WWE. But Tony Khan was speaking about it on the Ariel Helwani show and talked about how he was trying to generate buzz. And, at that time, Jon Moxley was the IWGP United States champion. They were bringing in Yuji Nagata for a match. He had reunited Roppongi Vice on AEW Dark Elevation, and that he really just wanted to get some buzz on a Wednesday night, but it came off a little differently, so much so that people are still talking about it a year and a half later, which I guess he's got a point there, that he did get the desired effect. But I also often wonder if New Japan pulled back because of those types of conversations, the kind of media coverage it was getting. You gotta wonder what it would have been like to see WWE and New Japan come together for some projects. I think they have, in terms of New Japan, some of the best talent in the world that we're probably never going to get to see wrestle some of the amazing stars in WWE, and vice versa. I'd love to see a Seth Rollins and a Kazuchika Okada match. I think I've been saying that on this show for years. At the time, they were trying to retain Daniel Bryan. I would have loved to see Daniel Bryan and Hiroshi Tanahashi in like the G1 Climax Finals or something like that, but apparently it never made it to fruition. So interesting how things play out, though. In another conversation on the Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer was talking about the fact that there's multiple stars that are looking to get out of AEW. I think his exact quote was, there's a few people, not that many. There's 3 that want to leave, and there are different stories, and Andrade is one of them, implying that Andrade El Idolo wants to get out of his contract and go potentially back to WWE. Now, of course, for anybody who knows anything about what's been going on in AEW, there's been a tons of controversy all summer long, but the big one is this week before Dynamite, Sammy Guevara and Andrade getting into a physical altercation. When it first went down, the reports that I read were that Guevara pushed Andrade and that he responded by throwing a punch. I saw a different report that said that Guevara threw a punch first. Now I've seen other ones recently that say Andrade threw first. I don't know who threw what, but I'm starting to wonder if Tony Khan is cut out for this business, if he keeps having all these backstage issues with his guys and can't lay down the law with them. And let's be honest, I would start locking guys in with a 2-year no-complete clause to come to the company if they engage in any kind of physicality like we're talking about. Any other contract termination could be the standard, 90 days like WWE does. But if you're getting into a physical altercation, 2 years. You could be sent home, get your downside guarantee, and 2 years of inactivity if you can't get yourself together. That's how you start implementing some leadership. I'm sorry. I know I've heard a lot of the veterans talk, and I know I'm an outsider. I'm not some inside guy. I've never walked an aisle or anything like that. I've heard people like Ric Flair talk about how tough CM Punk was at the scrum, telling people, come find me in the locker room. I know there's some people who really appreciate the way Andrade was standing up for what he believes in and things like that. I get that, but we can't have this lawless atmosphere in the back. And that seems to be what's happening. And it's really tainting the reputation of the company as a whole and Tony Khan's ability to run a company. And I know that can't look good to his father, who's, the owner of the Jaguars and all that kind of stuff. So I hope he gets things together. But at this point, we had a huge match that was scheduled. It was supposed to be Preston Vance, number 10 from the Dark Order, against Andrade. It was supposed to be a career versus mask match. And that now is not going to happen. We had to have a change to Battle of the Belts and put the Trios title on the line because Andrade was sent home because of this altercation. The back and forth on Twitter that took place, and I'm not going to give all the quotes because, quite frankly, one, there's a lot of profanity in there, and I know there's some young folks that tune into the show, but more importantly, I don't want to lend any credence to what either one of them said to each other. Neither one is being overly professional. Some people think Andrade just wants to get out of his deal and go back to WWE, and maybe there's some truth to that, but this isn't how you handle it. And Sammy Guevara, I'm sorry, where there's smoke, there's fire. Too many times has he lately been involved in these physical altercations. I think he's got an issue, whether it's, the Sasha Banks stuff going back way back in the day or the more recent stuff that you've got now with Andrade, Eddie Kingston. It seems to be a pattern developing, and if you're Tony Khan, you've got to get on top of that. Last couple tidbits in AEW news. Jay Lethal, it looks like he's turning babyface. Saw the interesting handshake exchange this past week, maybe turning his back on Sanjay Dutt and Satnam Singh, which I'm okay with. I think he should be a babyface anyways. My only concern is it's almost like they teased MJF turning face, which I'm really not ready for. I get if it's almost like a Stone Cold thing, like he's so popular and over with the fans, no matter what you do, they're going to cheer him anyways. That doesn't mean you got to change him. Leave him a bad guy that the fans cheer. Like I really really don't want to see MJF change. But Lethal, I'm good with. But they don't want to flip too many guys at the same time. Or it almost looks like you don't have smart booking. It looks, somewhat repetitive, and I'm just not a fan of that. And the last thing in the AEW, the focus on AEW, there will be one other thing later, but there's conflicting reports now, and Bandito, who appeared on AEW programming, faced Chris Jericho, great match, to the point that Tony Khan was giving him hugs at the top of the exit ramp. But the word came out last week that he was signed to a deal, and now there's conflicting reports that, Fightful and F4W Online, some of them are retracting their reports that said that he had signed, because apparently he hasn't signed with AEW, and now he's actually confirmed that he has an offer from WWE. Now, there's a lot of people saying it's like a foregone conclusion he's going to sign with AEW, but it's interesting because WWE does want to increase their Lucha Libre representation on their television programming, so it'd be interesting to see how that plays out. If the offer was a good one, a valid one, and one that gave him the kind of exposure he's looking for in North America. Right now, he's still going to be performing at Triple Mania in a six-man tag team match, which should be fantastic. But I'm curious to see what happens in terms of his future going forward. Shifting gears a little bit to WWE, Daniel Cormier coming in. He's going to be refereeing the Fight Pit match with Matt Riddle and Seth Rollins. I'm cool with that, as long as it leads to something. And he spoke earlier today about, as of right now, it's a one-time thing, he said. He was on ESPN talking about this, and I get that. But WWE better be playing the long game here and come up with something for the guy. He's wanted to be in WWE for a long, long time. Now that he's no longer an active fighter in the UFC, he's a UFC Hall of Famer. It's time, if he's ever going to do something, it's got to be now. Because, you can't wait forever for the guy. I know they want to do things with people like Logan Paul, and they want to bring back Bad Bunny at some point. And they want to bring in, I'm blanking on the name, the World Boxing Champion, all that kind of stuff. But, you can keep bringing these guys in. Tyson Fury, I apologize. But you got to have something planned out, and it's got to be real, and it's got to be convincing. Logan Paul, I feel like, is convincing. So was Bad Bunny. Both have put on great matches. I was not a big fan of the Tyson Fury thing at Crown Jewel, and quite frankly, I hope Cormier could hang in the ring, but I don't know what his pro wrestling prowess would be, especially at his age. So I hope there's something they do with him. Obviously, they're never going to bring out Cain Velasquez. That didn't work out so well. But this could lead to something really cool, but I just hope they find a way to make it work. Maybe he's somebody who faces Brock Lesnar, so that way Lesnar can be in something other than a World Championship program, but we'll have to wait and see. The other news that's WWE that I said kind of ties into our last thing about AEW tonight, WWE announces today that there is a variety of changes coming to the commentary teams. So starting effective immediately, Michael Cole is going to stay on SmackDown, and now he's going to be joined by Wade Barrett, who's leaving NXT. Over on Raw, Kevin Patrick and Corey Graves are going to be running the show. Byron Saxton will be doing backstage interviews. Jimmy Smith apparently is leaving the company. He confirmed that earlier today. Over on NXT, Vic Joseph is going to stay on commentary. Now he's going to be joined by Booker T, which I think will be an interesting replacement. Booker T, I think, does a great job on commentary. So I'll be wanting to see how everybody gels. Kathy Kelly is going to be returning to the company as a backstage interviewer for Raw. Sarah Schreiber, it sounds like, is being removed from the lineup at the present time. Kayla Braxton is going to remain on SmackDown. And then you've got Mackenzie Mitchell, who's going to stay in her position over in NXT. So there's a lot going on right now with all the shifting around, and you still got the whole Pat McAfee thing hanging over their head, where when he's done his College Game Day stuff, he's going to be coming back from ESPN, so we'll have to see how that plays out. And I almost find it interesting that that's all going on while there's other stories up about Jim Ross, who was on Grilling with JR, his show, talking about how he recently moved over to Rampage after 50 years in the business, broadcasting some of the biggest matches of all time, and how he's doing it to grow the brand. I don't think that's why they're doing the shift in any of the WWE programming. But I just find it so interesting that people get so caught up in all these announcer shifts. But they are interesting to see how people shake out and how they gel when they're forced into action and they're on the shows together. Because let's be honest, sometimes it just doesn't work. Not often, every now and again. But I'll be curious to see how that plays out. That's all the time we have for this episode. Check back with us next episode where we run the latest wrestling news and rumors. Special thanks, as always, goes out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com for producing all the music and sound effects that we ever use in our shows. Today's show is sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bringing a new friend to family game night is easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this game from Beazle Games by going to prowrestling.com and clicking in the middle of the screen to pick up your copy today. If you're looking for your next career move, you're considering college, university life, or you just need some formal training for your next career decision, go to our sister website at frolifeplanning.com for all your higher education needs, as Fro Life educational planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Dr. Fro, and I want to thank you for taking a few moments with us today. Until next time, take care, everybody, and have a great night.